Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to an incredible explainer that's literally going to fundamentally shift our paradigm on how to survive, lead, and actually thrive in today's super unpredictable modern workplace. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the daily grind, well, we are pulling together some truly fascinating source material today that looks at the human brain, the changing definitions of mental toughness, and the hidden power of, well, not fitting in. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the new face of resilience, how to rewire your stressed brain, the power of the introvert, the gift of struggle, and finally, building a resilient culture.
To really set the stage for why this matters right now, just consider this staggering statistic from recent workplace surveys. Over 75% of workers have recently experienced burnout. I mean, think about that. 3/4 of the workforce are hitting an absolute wall of chronic stress, exhaustion, and cynicism. The old ways of working and coping simply aren't holding up under the pressure of constant modern disruption.
So, this raises an absolutely crucial question. Is grit really enough to save us? We've all been taught, to just put our heads down, power through, and muscle our way past obstacles. But is simply enduring the pain actually the solution to burnout? Or do we need an entirely new approach to how we handle adversity?
All right, part one, the new face of resilience.
Because true resilience, it actually isn't what we used to think it was. The old paradigm was, well, all about endurance, right? Just toughing it out and taking the hits. But the new paradigm, it's about adaptability, strategic flexibility, and embracing change in real time. It's not about how much pain you can take. It's about how dynamically you can adjust your strategy when the environment around you suddenly shifts.
The source material actually shows us that modern growth is supported by a triad. So grit provides that long-term passion. Think J.K. Rowling facing years of rejection. Perseverance keeps you moving step by step. But it's that third piece, resilience, that actually allows you to bounce back and adapt when things go wrong. If you only have grit without adaptability, you literally just end up driving yourself straight into burnout.
Which brings us to Section 2, rewiring your stressed brain.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that you aren't just stuck with the stress responses you currently have. You can actively build brain mass in your hippocampus. That's the area associated with memory and learning, and regulate your dopamine levels just by implementing some specific science-backed habits. Consuming omega-3 fatty acids, so yeah, eat your avocados and walnuts, committing to daily mindfulness meditation, and regular aerobic movement physically alter your brain structure. They actually turn down the dial on the amygdala, which is your brain's fear center. And, well, when uncertainty inevitably hits you in the moment, you can actually hack your nervous system using this really cool rhythmic pause, ask, choose method. Think of stress kind of like being caught in an ocean's riptide. If you fight it, you drown from exhaustion. Instead, step 1 is to pause and stop fighting the current. Step 2 is to ask questions to reframe your perspective. And step 3 is to choose your response so you can take controlled, deliberate action. Swim parallel to the shore, right?
I absolutely love this analogy from the text because it perfectly captures the essence of personal agency. Resilient people aren't thermometers. Rather, they're thermostats. A thermometer just passively reads the room. If things get heated, it goes up. But a thermostat, it reads the room and then actively adjusts the climate. So the crucial point here is that you have the agency to be in control of the climate, not just a victim of the weather.
All right, let's pivot a bit for Section 3, the power of the introvert.
The texts introduce us to a really fascinating concept called the introvert. Now, actually, scratch that. This is not an introvert, and it's definitely not a social outcast. An introvert is someone who's often friendly, charming, highly social, but fundamentally, they are an emotional loner. You probably know someone exactly like this. Maybe it's you. They naturally resist the gravitational pull of groupthink. Even when they are welcomed with open arms into a group, they never truly feel like they belong, and they actually prefer it that way.
When we compare these two profiles side by side, we see some pretty stark contrasts. Communal thinkers rely super heavily on external approval and following group consensus. But look at the outrovert. They value strict independence, and they are totally emotionally self-sufficient. Because they aren't desperately trying to fit in, their refusal to blend in actually grants them massive advantages. They judge ideas on merit, not on whether the idea is popular, and that leads to huge advantages in creativity, empathy, and objective decision-making.
The sources describe these folks as meek rebels. Because they don't really want the drama of full-blown public conflict, they'll comply publicly with social norms, sure, but they revolt privately in their thoughts and their work. And this secret, behind-the-scenes defiance, It allows them to drive quiet, profound innovation. They can completely change the game from the inside purely because they aren't burdened by the need for social conformity. Moving right along to Section 4, the gift of struggle. Struggle is the most honest and revealing measure of progress toward becoming the leader you desire to be. This quote is from CEO Bobby Herrera. He grew up as the child of migrant field workers, and he discovered that hiding his difficult past was actually alienating him from his team. But when he finally embraced his vulnerabilities and authentically shared his story of struggle, it became the ultimate tool for building deep, genuine trust. Your struggles aren't things to hide. They are the exact human experiences that shape your leadership DNA. Think about your own team for a second. Herrera challenges leaders with this really direct question. Are you throwing resources at a problem just to cover up inefficiency? When a team is struggling to hit a goal, our instinct is usually, hey, let's hire more people or throw money at it. But Herrera reminds us that constraint and struggle breed creative innovation. Throwing money at a problem usually just masks the underlying inefficiency. Embrace the constraint, ask your team to increase efficiency first, and just watch the creative solutions pour in. And finally, let's look at the big picture with Section 5, building a resilient culture. To really thrive in complex environments, organizations don't just need top-down visionaries anymore. They need translational leaders. These are people who operate from the middle out. They connect the executives to the front lines, they foster deep psychological safety, they initiate those vital, honest conversations, and they promote a culture where it is totally okay to experiment and fail. They translate the high-level strategy into the daily reality of the team.
Now, what's super interesting is how these leaders actually execute that translation. It's almost entirely nonverbal. When you're leading a team through a crisis, your body language and your tone of voice command a staggering 90% of the actual message you deliver. If your words say, "We're fine," but your tone is panicked, yeah, your team is going to panic.
And look, systematically evolving a team doesn't just happen overnight. It's a journey. You spend the first month really establishing core values. By 6 months, you're pushing through the friction of those vital, honest conversations. And it takes about a year of consistent psychological safety to finally achieve that true adaptive resilience where the team can actually handle unexpected shocks. Which brings us to this awesome concept of an adhocracy. A truly resilient organization has a rigid, unmovable core purpose, like they know exactly why they exist. But the structures around that purpose, they are completely flexible. They maintain strategic looseness. They build structures to get the job done today, but they're entirely willing to abandon them tomorrow if the environment shifts. We're going to leave you with this really profound thought to ponder from the texts on the Autovert. If all the social pressure was completely stripped away, like if you were stranded on a desert island, what would actually matter to you? Challenging yourself to shed those outdated paradigms, dropping the desperate need for external validation, and swimming with the currents of change instead of fighting them. That is how you discover your own authentic resilience. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we will definitely catch you next time.